What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2011 mixtape of Gunplay of MMG and Triple C's. Basically, this project is called Inglorious Bastard, and it came out in the winter of 2011. So the thing about this particular project is this came out on the heels of the Carroll City Cartel's mixtape from late 2010, which I reviewed like a month and a half ago. Some pitches like that in early June of 2010. So pretty good pitch. Basically, the most recent Triple C's project I'd have to say had some gems on there. The unfortunate thing about it is there's a number of songs on this particular project that are also on that particular project. It's kind of the concept that originally some of this was the fact that Triple C's was going to put out their second album in late 2010 or mid 2011, some pitches like that. It was something that was being worked on, but the Triple C's members also had some solo projects that they were trying to put out, and Gunplay was one of those. The other two cats, Torch and Young Breed, also had some projects. They got some hits off there. I reviewed that particular project, one of which was like Bangs. There was a song by Torch or Young Breed that had like Buster Rhymes on there. I'll put that particular song in the title. That had like a music video for it and pitches like that. Pretty good concept. But Gunplay had a particular charting single off this project as far as that kind of went. It was a huge drill type song throughout 2011. Pretty good pitch as Waka Flocka in his prime years here as far as that would go along with it. The song Rollin's pretty good one. Didn't chart hugely on like the rap charts, but for a mixtape, especially a cat that didn't really put out an album until like the mid 2010s, it was a pretty good pitch. Kind of see that in particular. It was just kind of a concept that it hit like 98 out of 100 on the R&B/rap charts. And so that's basically, I want to say that's still to this day one of Gunplay's highest charting singles. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept, but that was the concept of what was happening with mixtapes in 2011, 2012, things like that. Just kind of folks were starting to get charting singles off of mixtapes. That was just kind of a good concept. It was definitely a good look for Gunplay just because Triple C's was really not that large back in the day. Not to say that they weren't that large, just kind of the concept that they never really charted that well. I want to say there are only two singles, which was Go from their 2009 album, and then Every Day. Some of those, there are two singles from their 2009 album, Go and Every Day, didn't really chart that well, and then Walking on Water from their attempt at their second album in 2010 didn't chart that well either. So it's just kind of the concept. But yeah, this project was a big deal. I would definitely look into this project if you remember Rick Ross and Triple C's from like the drill days and the mixtape craze of like 2010, 2011, 2012. But I'd say has some decent gems on here. It's just kind of unfortunate that there's so many recycled songs as far as that pitch can went. Originally, when I downloaded this project, I fucked with this project for a while. I do remember the song Rollin' and pitches like that, but it's just kind of the concept that I was kind of thinking that there would have been more new songs. I was definitely kind of thinking that there would have been more new songs on here and some of that type fare as far as that kind of went. But you do get some Triple C's kind of songs as far as that kind of goes, just some ones that he was kind of featured on. There's a couple ones on here that it's surprising that there were so many Triple C's and Rick Ross type songs that were attempting to blow up around that time. This is kind of pseudo before like MMG and the self-made albums from like the early 2010s as far as that particular kind of went. It felt like Rick Ross was still trying to push Triple C's a little bit, and even like the beginning months of 2011 as far as that kind of went. Gunplay was at least blowing up in like the early days of that. I mean, he did continue to put out mixtapes throughout the early 2010s, but didn't really drop an album until like Living Legend from 2015. The Triple C's album just kind of fell through as far as that went. But Triple C's did try to embrace like drill and things like that, and it was just kind of the concept that it was a big deal. Rick Ross was huge with songs like I'm Not a Star and MC Hammer, some of those type ones. Teflon Don was a big deal. Lex Luger was a big deal. Waka Flocka was a big deal. Some of those type things. It's just kind of a concept, but I'll go ahead and talk about the single on here. So I'm assuming that the single that was off this album was Rollin' featuring Waka Flocka Flame, just because that was the only song that really charted off this particular project. And like I said, it hit 98 out of 100 on the R&B/hip hop charts, which was good for a mixtape type fare, especially a cat like that was one of Rick Ross's wingman. That Triple C's the group wasn't that well known, but it's just kind of the concept. So we'll go ahead and talk about that one, just to kind of get towards it. Basically, Rollin' is like a vicious kind of drill highlight. I'd have to say in particular, it's like some easy kind of turn up craze. I would feel like the energy gets pretty ferocious, I'd have to suppose, and this is just like a classic mixtape bop, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept for that. Just really appreciate the affability behind this one. This is one that Lil Wayne freestyled to on like his Sorry for the Wait mixtape from 2011, so it's a good pitch to kind of see that if you have fucked with the Sorry for the Wait mixtape by Lil Wayne. It's a good concept. This is the original song. I feel like Waka Flocka completely shreds this song. His swag is just off the meter on this particular one. The charisma just really has some good charm appeal as far as that particular kind of goes. Just in a good Waka Flocka's charisma just has some real high charm appeal as far as that particular goes on this particular song. But I would say Gunplay has a pretty good flow on this song. It's just a good concept. It's just a good one to kind of recite the lyrics on, just kind of have that as sort of appeal. I mean, it's not like it's super lyrical type song, it's just the aspect that it goes in. This really gets the point across. It's a real good turn up type one to just have like a crazy night. There definitely need to be more songs like this, but I would say that there kind of are. Maybe not with the full blown blistering appeal, just like the ferocity of this, but I do feel like there's some ones on here that do capitalize on some of that drill type stuff to kind of say that Gunplay was a good rendition of some of this, and he took that particular sound like a fish to water, just like Rick Ross did. It's just a good concept. Waka Flocka and Gunplay make a pretty good combination, I'd have to say, so that's a good concept. But basically, there's 12 songs in this particular mixtape, not counting the 5. Basically, there's 17 songs in this mixtape, but minus like the 5 skits and intros and outros and pitches like that, it narrows it down to 12 songs. Now, those 12 songs, I wound up recommending 10 approximately. So that's pretty good. You would think that this would get like a classic score, but the concept about it is just the fact that 4 of those 10 songs are to be found in other projects, like the Carol City Cartels mixtape that I was talking to you about that I reviewed back in early June of 2024. The most recent Triple C's mixtape. So some of those songs would be Walking on Water and Bust Your Heart, which are some of those songs would be Walking on Water and Bust Your Heart, which are some of the most recent Triple C's type songs. Walking on Water is like a Lex Luger beat, which is pretty good, awesome example. If you like Rollin', definitely would recommend Walking on Water. That's a real nice one, but it's the same thing with Bust Your Heart. Triple C's was trying to do drill around that time. Those are some nice ones, but those are on other projects. I feel like Sell Out of Everything is a Young Buck type song. It's surprising because the mixtape says that it was by Triple C's, but it really isn't. Young Buck and Murphy Lee, of all people, are on this particular song. It's pretty good pitch. And then Gunplay. Interesting concept to have that particular amalgamation of a song format. I want to say that this song was by Young Buck. Not really sure. There's not a ton of information full-blown about it. But I kind of look after it's a low-key type Young Buck song that kind of charted like in 2010 or 2011. I don't know if it's on a Young Buck mixtape or where it particularly went. The information, like I said, was kind of minimal, but I'm going to count it as an almost song just because it can be found elsewhere. But there is another song on here that can be found elsewhere that was kind of released as like a standalone single or pitches like that. I'm not really sure if Gunplay was on the original, but that's another one. But that's not an almost song. We'll talk about that one in a moment. But then the other song that's an almost song that was to be found elsewhere was All On You, which was also on the Triple C's mixtape from late 2010. So all of those could be found on that particular project. I realized that this particular mixtape, I want to say this mixtape came out January 1st of 2011. So it's really just a few 2 or 3 or 4 weeks after that particular Triple C's mixtape. So it's just kind of the concept that some of these were still fresh enough to kind of throw on here again. But it's just kind of a disappointment concept just because we would have liked some more, or at least I would have liked some more Gunplay type songs to see what he could have done. Now, even Rollin' was on that Triple C's mixtape. I'm going to count that one just because that's a Gunplay solo song. And I kind of feel like the aspect behind it, I don't know. I guess I could almost say that All On You could be counted as like, kind of like, I'm going to give it like a relatively good score here just within the aspect behind it. I don't know, it's just kind of dicey because there's at least 4 or 5 and maybe even 6 songs out of these 12 on here that can be found elsewhere. I'll just go ahead and list those. I might have to restructure like the song listings as the ones I recommend. So basically, Rollin' can be found elsewhere, Walking on Water, Bust Your Heart can be found elsewhere, Miss Me can be found elsewhere, another one can be found elsewhere, Sell Out of Everything can be found elsewhere, and All On You can be found elsewhere. So that's really only 5 songs out of 12 on here that can't be found elsewhere in some fashion. And basically out of those 7, I wound up recommending like 5, or 6, I would have to say. So this is kind of the aspect, but I'll go ahead and talk about the full-blown songs that are at least songs I recommend. So I made a mistake in the review. Basically, there's 12 songs on this particular mixtape, not counting the 5 intro, outro, and skits and pitches like that. There's 17 songs on here, but minus those 5 skits, intros, and outros, it narrows it down to 12. And out of those 12 songs on here, I wound up recommending to you 10. Now, out of those songs, at least 7 of them are to be found. Out of the 12 songs on here, I wound up recommending to you 10. Now, the problem with it is there's some real dicey type ones because at least 7 of these in particular are to be found on other projects, including the Triple C's mixtape and pitches like that. Just some of that type stuff, the Triple C's mixtape from late 2010. So it's just kind of a dicey. It just would take a lot of explain the concept of which songs are going to be found elsewhere. But some of these, like the Triple C's songs, Walking on Water and Bust Your Heart, are on the Triple C's mixtape. Rollin' is actually on that Triple C's mixtape. I would have to say that was a preview to Gunplay's solo affair. All On You is on the Triple C's mixtape. Miss Me was on the Triple C's mixtape. So there's just some ones on here. There's just a bunch of these type ones, but I'll just go ahead and recommend the 10 songs out of 12 that I recommend on here, and then we'll just talk about it. Just be easier that way. So 10 songs I recommend would be Rollin'. Basically, the 10 songs I recommend on here would be Rollin', Walking on Water, Bust Your Heart, On My Lap, Another One, Sell Out of Everything, Four Loko, Pump That Fee Up, How You Do That, and All On You. So basically, some of these type ones on here I'm not going to talk about as much just because the concept that they're already on the Triple C's project. Basically, Walking on Water, I just recommend getting that on the Triple C's mixtape because that's more Triple C's type of appeal. Same thing with Bust Your Heart. These are just some drill type ones, one of which is produced by Lex Luger. That's Walking on Water. It's the most recent Triple C single, so I do recommend that quite a bit. Check out that Triple C's review in the Rick Ross playlist for that. I'd say Sell Out of Everything is a Young Buck type song that's a pretty good, this kind of pseudo drill slash pseudo kind of early 2010s type nightclub type hit. I'd have to say it's a nice one. This is a song I haven't talked about before, but it's basically, like I was saying, by Gunplay. It's a song by Young Buck, Murphy Lee, and Gunplay. So that's the pitch behind it as far as that particular kind of goes. But I'm not really sure as to where that project was found, but it's a pretty nice nightclub type bounce. And then All on You is a Gunplay type song that was also on. And then All on You is also like a Gunplay type song that was also on the Triple C's mixtape. This is like a very Miami Vice and Vice City type of feel that this particular kind of has. It's a real Florida disc pitches like that, just pink sky, some of that summer breeze type stuff. I'd have to say is some good kind of in between type moments of just getting bills paid and just appreciating the summer wind and pitches like that. This would have to say. But basically, to talk about some of these, I talked about Rollin' already. So On My Lap is a pretty nice one. This is another kind of pseudo drill type hit. It's like a bopping kind of out and about breeze of a song. I'd have to say in particular, it's like some evening turn up. I would definitely have to feel like, and this is just like a basic cruise type music. I would say just some get food kind of thrills. I'd have to suppose. This is just a good concept. This is definitely one. This one's not as vicious as Rollin', not as vicious as another one, not as vicious as Walking on Water. Some of those type ones are Forward Loco. I'd have to say it was just a good concept. Kind of have some of that in between type appeal. It's kind of, I mean, it has some stun appeal towards it, but it's just not quite as ravenous as like some of these other drill type ones on here. It's relative drill, but it's just a little bit calmer, just within the edginess of it. Just kind of where it's turn up, but it's not sheer full blown kind of crazed. But it's definitely pretty festive. Do like that one. Another one's a pretty nice one. This is a song with Puff Daddy and Rick Ross back when they did a lot of team ups back in like the late 2000s and early 2010s. Apparently Gunplay was on this song. I don't know if it's just the remix that he threw on there in particular. What I don't know the original make of that particular song. It was not a song I heard back in the day, but it's a pretty good pitch. Puff Daddy, Rick Ross team up back in those particular days, and apparently it might have had Gunplay, some pitches like that. Something that came out in like late 2010, early 2011. But when I looked this song up on Google, it said it was on a Rick Ross album called Maybach Music, but it wasn't MMG Self-Made Volume 1. It was just an album that was strictly called Maybach Music. So I don't know if that was like an unofficial album or a bootleg or something like that, but it's just kind of the concept. There's a single by Puff Daddy, Rick Ross called Another One. It's just a pretty good pitch. I do like this song, so it's at least on this particular Gunplay project if you can't find it anywhere else. And I do appreciate this variation of it. There's like a Liddy kind of stock highlight for MMG. I would definitely have to say it's like a night. This is definitely like some nightclub drill in like a commercial sense. I would have to say, and this song slaps pretty hard, so it's just good. The thing about this particular project is just the fact that Gunplay really nailed some of these on here, just within the relative pitch of turn up. This is a pretty lively type project here, and it just has a lot of weekend activity in this overall pitch like that to really get things pretty crazed. I mean, obviously with the name like Gunplay, it would imply that he would be a pretty crazed and this overall manic type individual. Is this kind of concept that you would think? Yeah, I mean, there are moments, like if you think Rollin's the only good moment on here just because that's the single, there's actually plenty of these on here, whether or not you've heard the Triple C's mixtape. If you haven't heard the Triple C's mixtape that I've been talking about, it's easy enough to recommend Bust Your Heart and Walking on Water and some of those type ones, but another one's just another stock highlight. That's kind of a single. I'm surprised that one wasn't for retail sale or something like that, but I don't really know the home project that should have been on, because I definitely feel like that probably should have been a single that should have been on an album. I'd say just a very Liddy type one, very similar to Walking on Water pitches like that. As a bonus, it has Puff Daddy on there, Rick Ross on there, some of those type pitches, so it's a pretty good concept. Pump That Fee Up is a pretty nice one. This is another good highlight of like Gunplay that's pretty similar to Rollin', just not quite as crazy. Just a good follow-up to it and a good cousin of it. I'd have to say it's like a good mixtape gem for some evening excitement. I'd have to say it's like a balanced kind of late work shift kind of drill song. I'd have to say, so it's kind of a work shift type song, just within a sense. If you do just in a hustler's makeshift type aspect, just getting done with work, finishing up those tasks, getting some of that last minute type stuff, 5:30 p.m. pitches like that, 6:15 as things get wrapped up and you just get ready to have some times and just either go out or get ready to smoke some pitches like that. I just would have to say go pick up a pizza, some of those type things, just in particular as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some good aspects about that. Just a really energetic type one, just another nice one to kind of have. Easy kind of some shredding type turn up. And then a relatively brief song on here that's still pretty nice one is How You Do That. It's like a woozy kind of house party turn up of a song. I had to say it's like a good get torch kind of, this song is like some good get torch kind of night sludge, I'd have to say, and the song just works great for the after hours. This kind of reminds me of like an early 2010s rendition of like Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg, I'd have to say. It's really kind of that woozy type of appeal where you're just tore out of your mind like you would be on Gin and Juice or something like that. It's just a pretty good concept. So overall, Gunplay dropped a pretty balanced and overall sheer type mixtape, I'd say. I mean, the quality of it, if there weren't so many songs that were just on other projects or other things overall, I'd have to say that this probably would have been a damn near classic mixtape. Definitely had some of that ferocity. The drill songs on here are extremely engaging, I suppose, and Gunplay has a pretty compelling personality and delivery as far as that particular gun goes. He's like a good second banana to Rick Ross, I definitely have to say, and probably the member of Triple C's that I would invest in next if you do know them, but you don't know the full group as well as like Rick Ross and stuff. I'd have to say that's not to ignore like Torch and Young Breed, I'd have to suppose, but they seemingly didn't last as long as Gunplay type did, at least with like the mixtape ferocity that kind of went along with it. And Gunplay was like the only one that really dropped albums, I'd have to suppose, at least ones that charted on like the Billboard 200 pitches like that was just kind of the concept. So there are some other songs on here, like I said, Sell It, Everything's pretty nice one, Glissy, Nightclub Bounce, good song by Young Buck and Murphy Lee, and Gunplay as far as that kind of goes. Just kind of an in-between type one that's similar to On My Lap and Pump That Fee Up, I'd have to say. And then Four Loko is like a freestyle to Waka Flocka's Hard in the Paint, which of course suits Gunplay pretty damn well. That's one of the songs that helped kick off drill sound and pitches like that, just set off like that 2010 type craze. So it's just an easy kind of highlight. Gunplay feels right at home in a song like that. That's the concept. So basically, that's the concept. Me basically recommending 10 songs out of 12 on here, despite the fact that a lot of these are repeat. Songs as far as that particular kind of goes. I'm going to give this particular mixtape like a 7.75 out of 10. I feel like 10 out of 12 definitely deserves a higher score than that, but it's just kind of the fact that you can find some of these elsewhere. It's just kind of the pitch. Talk about the two songs I didn't recommend on here. Basically, I didn't like the concept of Miss Me. Didn't like it on the Triple C's project from late 2010. Don't like it on here. It was just a poor instrumental. This is a song that I never really liked off Drake's Thank Me Later. It was just kind of one that didn't make a lot of sense. Probably one of the worst songs that Lil Wayne and Drake had kind of been on. It was just one of the poorer type team-ups that they had, and this is just not a very interesting one to listen to. And then it's the same thing with Money in My Pocket. Just the overall styles of Money in My Pocket just didn't work out that well. It's just kind of it's trying to be like a trap glacial type one, just within a relative pitch, a little bit more finesse towards it, but just the concept of it was just kind of an awkward type one that just didn't really have the same appeal towards it. I feel like at least Gunplay was trying to establish some further strengths. It's just the concept of how it kind of happened just didn't work as well as it probably needed to. But yeah, I give this mixtape like a 7.75 out of 10. I definitely would have given it a higher score if there would have been 10 out of 12 on here that I would have recommended, and these songs had been exclusive to this particular project. It would have gotten a lot higher score. Now I realize that the Triple C's mixtape only came out like 3.5 or so weeks before this particular one. Was this kind of console? I still feel like Gunplay probably should have packed this project with a few more songs. I count songs like Rollin', and I would count like All on You. I'd have to say it was just kind of the concept that I do feel like there's enough repeat offenders. I would almost give it an 8 out of 10. I kind of feel like it's just here and there just because of that particular concept, but it's just kind of, you look after it, getting both mixtapes and having some of these repeat type ones where you really only get about 5 songs, just in terms of songs that you can't find anywhere else. I would say that would basically boil down to On My Lap, Another One, Four Loko, Pump That Fee Up, and How You Do That, which is really only 5 songs. Out of 12 on here, so it's just kind of the concept. I'm going to stick with the 7.75 score. The social score, though, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10 because I feel like the social appeal of this project is pretty high. Gunplay definitely has a ferocious type personality, and the appeal of these songs is just dastardly. The casual appeal of this project is just dastardly, and it hits extremely effectively. I'd have to suppose a lot of these just connect pretty well. There's plenty of singles on here. I feel like Rollin', Walking on Water, Another One, some of those type ones in particular, even Four Loko, which is by Waka Flocka's Hard in the Paint. Just a lot of these are just some real classic drill type appeals that just have some of that ferocious bite, and they're great for night bounce. They're just great for night outing bounce and just stunting and things like that, just going out and getting done with work shifts, some of those type pitches, and like a hustler's makeshift in this overall feral type formats. This is a good, great concept for early 2010s. A 9 social. In terms of future, not really sure what Gunplay's been up to. I know he kind of got into a beef with like some DJ or pitch like that. I think it was like DJ Envy, something that relative pitch. But I just would have to say Rick Ross has been kind of beefing with Drake. I don't know what Gunplay thinks of Drake at this particular stage, just would have to suppose. But he does have some other hit projects. I think this is one of Gunplay's biggest projects. He's pretty low key nowadays. You have to kind of hunt for it. But he was a mixtape rapper that did chart in like 2011 pitches like that. Pretty good concept. I definitely feel like the Waka Flocka feature probably helped as far as that particular pitch kind of went. It's just a good concept to kind of get some of these. Just the casual appeal, this is relatively high on this particular one. But I would have to say it does have some commercial bite about it, despite the fact that Gunplay was just a part of a rap group that just really didn't make much of a commercial splash. But I still recommend it. He's definitely like a high grade wingman of Rick Ross and pitches like that. And this just has some excellent drill on here for some weekend outings.